Motivation isn't real. And I know you've probably heard this thousands of times at your screen. Motivation over discipline, you have to stay disciplined. And to be honest with you, it's true, because motivation isn't like a real thing. It's literally just a feeling in the spur of the moment. And motivation can come from such different factors. It can come from, being happy. It can come from being sad. It can come from being angry. These things motivate you because there's such high frequencies of emotion that motivate you to do something. When you get angry, you lash out. Like things like that, it just motivates you to do something. It could be you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I hate where I look right now. Maybe you're crying, and I can tell you that's what happened to me, and there was a bunch of other things, but looking at myself, I just wasn't happy, and it motivated me so much. But the thing is, you have to break it down, because motivation will fade. It's not always going to be this thing that's with you for your whole life. And once you realize that motivation is just a spur of the moment kind of thing, you'll realize that that's where discipline comes in. And you got to realize that once you're motivated and you can stay disciplined for a bit and you build that momentum where you start seeing certain results, whether or not it's physical, mental, whatever, you'll start to realize that you kind of get addicted to it. Once you start seeing, some progress in the gym, you get addicted to it and you want to keep going. But the thing is, sometimes things happen in your life. I've had injuries, I've had, emotional things, passings, and it's hard. It's hard to come back from that. But what would that say, of a man that you are if you just gave up from certain things in life? Because everyone goes through hard things in their life. It's not always going to be happy things. And at the end of the day, that is life. And, you have to realize that, you already have these discipline factors in you. You're already disciplined. Like if you show up to your job, like if you work a job and you show up every day working 40 plus hours a week, you're already disciplined in that field, right? Because what would happen, if you didn't go to work? You wouldn't have the money coming in. You wouldn't be able to feed yourself. You wouldn't probably be able to support yourself, support your family, maybe go on trips, whatever. But you need that income, because those consequences are worse, and it will put you on the street. Like that's like, if you don't work, you'd end up on the streets, right? So the consequences are worse than showing up to work every day. So you show up to work every day, and you got to think of it almost for fitness, right? And just, mentally, because working out isn't just a physical thing. But, if you don't show up to the gym, even 3, 4, 5 days a week, what are the consequences of that? You're probably not going to live as long, right? Plain and simple. You're not going to live as long as if you're not living healthy, because, health is wealth at the end of the day, and it's just going to give you more time on this earth that you live on, right? And the consequences as well is, you're going to get more overweight, which just means more prone to certain diseases, prone to more health issues in the future. And you got to realize it's not just for yourself, the consequences, but it's what you're portraying to others as well, which you might not think of it, but those consequences will affect them. It will affect them. I have a father who I struggled to see for years, falling asleep on the couch, bag of chips in his hand, watching TV every day. Imagine that as a son, me walking in, maybe hanging out with some friends, maybe it was a late day at school, maybe whatever, and I see my father that I'm supposed to look up to, that I want to be someday, sleeping on the couch every day with a bag of chips, overweight, fat. How do you think that makes me feel as a son? Someone that I look up to and I'm proud of? No. And it just makes me think of, how do I want my kids in the future to look at me like? I want to be that man. I want them to look at me and be like, yeah, that's my father. I want to be that dad that comes into on parent-teacher day, the kids that comes to, what are those, like, job day at your work, and like talks to, the kid. And I want my kid to be sitting in that class and looking at me and be like, that's my dad. That's my dad. And that's how it ties into with, like, the consequences. Because what if I was that father that was lazy, that didn't have goals, that just looked like someone that wasn't, well kept, and that could mean just being overweight, and that shows a lot, because when you look at someone who's overweight, you think of, the stereotype that they're lazy, of course, that they eat bad and all these things, and it's true. And staying disciplined through that to show to others, but also yourself, is such a big thing, because once the discipline starts, it turns into momentum that you can use for so much things in your life. Like, for example, I'm in Japan right now, right? And I pretty much pay for everything now on my own. And a fish just jumped out of the water. And yeah, I mean, I've paid for all this, and realizing that you are on your own and being able to be disciplined and using that can show others how hard you really work. And like I said, I've been through things, and motivation is the reason why I started. I went through, breakups. I went through getting bullied. I went through my family getting split up, my parents getting split up. I went through passings, and I can tell you it's hard. But it would be even harder if I was so unhappy with myself where it still hurt me for so many years. And I can tell you, it's like, I'm not all good because of it. Like, I definitely still do think of these things, and they still do affect me. But at the end of the day, it's still gonna happen. So I can either be, the best version of myself and going through these things and making myself stronger for when I have these other negative things that happen in my life, or I can be that negative person that, eats all this food with emotion like I used to, and be down on myself and cry in my pillow every night when I went to sleep. And then those things, the negative things that come in my future, are just going to bring me down even more. So at the end of the day, you just have to start, and you got to stay disciplined. And man, it's just how it is, and that is life. You have to realize that you have to start, because you're going to regret it. You're going to regret it at the end of the day. So, at the end of the day, I ask you, are you going to keep waiting? Are you going to keep waiting? Because, your life is an hourglass, and are you going to keep waiting for the sand to come down till that top of that hourglass is empty? Are you going to make something of yourself as a man? Because be that man that you want to be, that you dream of. It's not that hard. I've been there. I didn't start out like this. I wasn't in the best shape of my life just like this. It took me a long time to figure out how to do it, how to implement it, and how to stick to it. And you got this. Like, if you're watching this, you got to the end of this video, it shows that you got this, that you believe that you can. And I'm telling you, you can. Just believe in yourself. Stay disciplined, stay motivated, and keep that ball rolling.